And here we are for the final of our best of three Byzantine English showdown as part of the Hermes Prime tournament for Platinum. And again, all of the stuff will be in the description, so you can go to his channel, you can sign up for the next tournaments that he's organising and all that good stuff. So the map today we are on is the Pit. Again, this map neither of us really knew about it. I've played it a couple of times because it was on the ladder the first time I started playing ranked. I think it was season 5 or season 4 potentially, but until this season I've literally played about 50 matches total, so I remember playing it a little bit. So I remembered that the sheep spawn down the 3 alleys and you've got three different avenues, sacred site in each, and there's a load of stealth forests in the centre. 4 wood patches, and then you've got a market in 2 opposite corners, and opposite that you've got a big golden stone. So it's a fairly symmetrical map. I didn't realise this at the time, but the relic spawn actually was really good in my favour. They were actually all round my base basically, so as I always go for the winery, that's pretty good. I was doing my standard opening over here, so 7 food, 3 on gold, with my cistern buffing up everything. And basically just waiting to bring some sheep back and hoping to find some, because I think I got 3 so far. I'm not sure if the sheep spawn on this map if there's less sheep, because I know some maps have slightly less, some have slightly more. We're looking at you, Hidden Valley from last season that nobody wants to play anymore. And so yeah, this one I wasn't feeling particularly confident. As anyone who has seen these games or seen any of my other recordings of my ranked games, I am not a fan of playing against English, like I think a lot of people at the moment. And I think the last time I checked, I had about a 20% win rate or something like that. It feels like it doesn't matter what they do, I just don't perform very well. Personally, I actually think it's probably that I feel like I have to play really well to come out on top, whereas if I play really badly or the English player just plays a fairly decent game, they get a much easier time of it because of all the bonuses. But, you know, that could just be me trying to cope with the fact that I'm terrible. So, you know, we'll see. But so far I've got a couple of sheep, so that's going to keep me going. And this time I aged up with 4 because I wanted to make sure I had more wood to get production, because that extra villager, if I'm aging up for, let's say, 2 minutes, that is, what's that, about 60-70 wood, which I can then use to build production. I can get my wheelbarrow and stuff like that, which I wasn't able to do in the last 2 games, so I was trying my best to learn. And now we've seen the dreaded council hall, so Tobias Ern is mixing things up now, not doing his King 2 TC. The council hall goes up, and so I'm expecting the infamous longbow rush, which, if you've seen the King match that I played in the second match, which if you haven't, I'll put a card or a link in the description or something so you can find the other matches. I didn't fare particularly well in that last game against the King, and I have a terrible track record with the longbows, because I'm not very good at micro, and trying to micro to get reinforcements and dodging spears and men-at-arms turning up. It's literally the things nightmares are made of, at least for me anyway. So because I saw the council hall, I pulled off stone and I went straight over to wood, because I really wanted to get those units out quickly, just in case he really started spamming them straight across the middle, because he's put it forward and it's so close to my base going down that central track. I was really worried about them coming over. In hindsight, what I could have done is basically just walled along this gold. So kept the gold in there so then I could get it if I needed it in the future, but I could have just literally walled this central one and he'd have had to go the long way round. And if I'd have walled, let's say, this one and this one, I'd have secured the deer and the boar for me. There's berries on this side, but then I could have put my army in this edge and defended a little bit better, but I didn't actually wall. And I went for the border settlements so that I could actually put some houses around the edges of my base and down by the winery to try and get a little bit of extra vision. After the pit where I felt like I couldn't see anything, I wanted to try and have a little bit extra. My cistern's up a little bit earlier, and I'm not sure if I remember to put it on Dialecticus, but as I mentioned before, I always try and put the one that's with Winery on Dialecticus, and then I put my blacksmith in the same place, so I'm hoping I remember to change it over, because also I tend to get most of my eco upgrades from here as well, so it tends to work out pretty well. So I'm constantly trying to scout to see how many units he's got. I can't see any so far, so I keep going back, and this is something I wanted to do, and I saw the barracks come up, so I assumed it would be spears, because he's already seen I've gone for the stables. Now at this point, I'm not really sure what my plan was, and I think that's probably a problem. So I'm kind of planning on being a bit aggressive here, so I'm sending my horsemen forward to try and, I don't know, stop him massing up, if that's even something that you can really do. So I actually think this potentially is a bit of a mistake to go aggro this way, where I can't actually do so much damage on this particular map, because the spawn of the gold is usually on one side or the other, so it's not as easy to get to. It can be quite challenging because the TC usually covers most of this front side and stuff like that. So I went for longbows. And this time, sometimes I'll go for javs and archers, because as Byzantines you've got two real approaches to go against the longbows. You can either go full archer javelins, and then when they add in men-at-arms, because they usually will, then you go for horsemen later, or you can go for the classic horseman archer longbow, and then you use your archers and longbows to snipe their spears, and then once the spears are gone, then do that. So here, this, when running around here distracting these is definitely a really good idea, and really what I should have done here is scouted a back round the front to see how many units were coming, because it's about 6-7 minutes. Usually this is when I would expect them to be coming into my base, and I've got a decent amount of horsemen now, so realistically I can run away. If they're coming to my base, I can just make longbows at home. So at this point, I think what I should have done, just because moving around like this, I was trying to force them out to see what he'd got, because I couldn't really see anywhere else. This is when I should have said, right, he hasn't got a lot of units, I'm just going to keep circling around like I'm going to poke, see how many longbows he's got a couple here and there, and I can see it's starting to grow. I could have re-macroed here and started working towards castle. Kept the longbows back here, kept the horsemen running around and just reinforcements at home in case he pushed out, and these could have just stood around, and then 6 horsemen there is actually still quite scary. And then if he did have a load of spears and he was trying to push out on me, I can pull back and pull the reinforcements together. These longbows could have just stayed at home defensively, and that would have been absolutely fine. I didn't do that, so because I could have pulled all of these and stuck them on the deer over here for loads of food. I could have gone to berries to get more oil and just basically added in 2 more batches of longbows while I got to castle, because I'm already starting to get decent income with food. But here again, I'm trying to do some damage. I saw him out, saw the deer killed there, and now I'm starting to see these longbows, but he's not pushing out, and it's 8 minutes now. So if I'd have re-macroed a couple of minutes ago, I could have been much closer, and that I think is the better play here, when he's not already pushing me, because here I've got a really good force. It's fairly even, but these horsemen are really strong. If I'd have just basically used these defensively, had a couple of these running around to try and do damage, but avoided taking damage myself, then I could have got to castle, got like a single cataphract. Because I had this in a ranked game the other day where I was basically trying to defend the push. I was just getting taken down, they were ramming my TC, I got a single cataphract out, and that cataphract basically just cleaned up all the men-at-arms and cleaned up everything really, because it's just so chonky. So that would have been good. Here also, I only have 5 longbows. This isn't enough. If I'm going to be doing this, what I need to be doing is actually stop making horsemen, because that's more than enough horses at this stage. What I needed to get my ranged defense, which I've got my blacksmith now, which hopefully somebody didn't switch it over, so getting it in the influence doesn't matter. I should have got an archery range. If I'm going to be going for this aggressive push, I should have had an archery range, and I should have been making loads and loads of archers as well, because when you've got these longbows, if they snipe my longbows, then I have nothing against spears, and then the longbows and the spears just decimate my horses. So I do add in an archery range shortly, but it's not enough. And here, this is really where it starts to go a bit downhill. I push in heavily with these horses, which I didn't need to do, and that's 1 down, almost two down, and there's 2 more damaged. And so the spears are doing damage now, and look, I've done nothing, and I've just lost a load of horses there and a load of longbows. So this really isn't good, because as I'm running away, they can just come in and get a couple of those. And I've got some more over here, but this is really bad now. I'm actually ahead with villagers, so I was a bit better on villager production, which is pretty good. And my eco is actually good enough. I could have even gone to castle now. So his longbows are starting. This is starting to look really scary now. But if I'd pulled back, if I'd have walled this centre, to slow him down, and then I'd got to castle in the next couple of minutes, then my eco probably would have been good enough. And this fight is absolutely terrible. So I'm running away, still get caught by the spears, I have no range now, so I can't take the fight, and all of these horses are getting cleaned up. So as much as I'd like to be talking about how I need more vision and stuff like that, the micro on this just completely decimated me. And so I've added in the archery range, but it's not enough, and so I'm having to basically retreat all of these villagers over to gather over here, outside of the cistern influence, so the eco is not even as good. So it's a really bad point, and I put a cistern over here just because that should buff it. It should have gone up here, and it would have got both berry patches and even maybe caught the deer, but I just panicked and built it because it's better on some villagers than none. And so now I'm just trying to mass up, but at this point I think probably I should have really felt that the game was not going my way, and I should have really decided, okay, these units can probably hold them off for a couple of minutes, get to castle. And I keep saying it, but with hindsight, it just feels like the really obvious choice. Like pushing in here, I have no idea what I was doing. So they're all injured, and I know he's down here, and that just is a massive 27 archers. And if you think they do 7 a shot, so let's say there's 30 of them, they do 7 a shot, that's 210 damage. I have, what have we got? So 3 ranged. You know, so if they're doing 4 a shot, they're still doing 120 damage a shot, so they can actually basically almost one-shot a horse every single time. So it doesn't really matter how many I have now, because I can't charge in like this, because I still lose them before I even get close, and then if the spears aren't taken out, then they just go down even more quickly. So this is where the critical mass of longbows just really comes into play, and I've just mismanaged my units, because at one point I did have enough to really do some damage. So yeah, this and this sort of these numbers, I definitely shouldn't be pushing in with these. This is something I do sometimes where I'm feeling quite nervous and feeling like I have to do damage to survive. And actually, if I pulled these back and just defended, what's he going to do? He's going to come to get me, but then I would have the advantage, and these units would just slowly be coming out to help me defend. So yeah. And I basically decide at this point to double down and try to get more horses. He has so many longbows, it really doesn't matter how many horses I have at this stage, and I'm only realising it now looking at the game as it is. And if we go to the vision, so he's now set up, he's getting loads of farms, so his food eco is going nicely. He's only got a couple on gold, so he's got no plans on going to Castle Age at all. I am only just getting wheelbarrow and double broadaxe, so all of that gold I've been floating, which looked like I was going to castle, definitely wasn't for going to castle. Which it should have been, and I'm getting, like, for example, the bloomery, which really should be the steeled arrow. I should have had that ages ago so my longbows could snipe a little bit better. And I send a couple of horses around here to try and go and do some damage in his base, so I send them all the way over here to his gold, hoping to hit something. And I'm basically just trying to mass up now with enough to try and defend. But as we can see with our God Vision, the men-at-arms are starting to come out now. And that's a big problem, because they can just tank so much damage at this stage. And even though there's only 5 spears, if I were able to snipe them out easily and I had enough ranged, I could probably cause problems. So I am sniping them, so they are going down, but now the horses have to tank the men-at-arms, otherwise they just completely wipe out my ranged. And I have half the number of ranged units compared to his, so although the military count looks fairly even, this is not a good fight for me. And, you know, I'm doing some fairly decent damage, but look at these horsemen. They're all going down now, and then as soon as they're gone, there's no reason for him to turn around, and he can just basically just run at me. So if he just basically A-moved at me now, these would just melt. So obviously he turns around at this stage, but he could have literally just, the second the horses are down, just A-moved, and he has more. So eventually he would win. And these units, I don't know what they're doing, I don't know where they're going. Have I changed the rally point? Yeah. So running straight through, which obviously is not clever, so these are going to do the same. So yeah, so now I'm just trying to do more, and I think I managed to get 5 villagers over on the gold. Obviously those units are down now, but so that's pretty good. Maybe doing that a couple more times would have helped, but yeah, with 40 longbows in outside your base and some men-at-arms, my army of 26 ranged units and a couple of horses is really struggling to keep up now. And so there's a horseman there trying to do a bit of damage, doing some idle, which is nice. So maybe this is something I could have done with a single horseman, just sending it in every so often, just to either cause idle or get some villagers and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's a pretty good fight. Not for me, but you know, it looks cool, and I like the Japanese biome that we're using here. So it's, yeah, I'm trying to do my best to do damage and still macro at home, but I think unfortunately we can all see where this one's going. But it's a learning experience, and it's my first time, and against my worst possible matchup, I'm still relatively happy with how I did. So now I'm moving out onto the deer to try and get my food eco up. I've already cleared out these berries, and I'm out on these ones up the top. And I'm slowly trying to add in groves now, just to get my oil income up so I can potentially get some more longbows. So yeah, but I'm at half the military now, and I knew it as well. So some games, like in that King of the Hill, the second match, I didn't really always know exactly how many units he had because of my vision, but because I've fought his units so often in this game, I know I'm massively under in terms of units, and he has longbows, which are just incredible. So, yeah, at this point, I'm feeling in real danger. Yeah. So, not ideal, and I'm also starting to float a load of gold, so I think my plan actually now is to go to castle, which is probably, you know, 7-8 minutes too late, and I should have really gone and done stuff like this with the deer much earlier, because if we look at the eco, if we see, my food eco is actually pretty good. Overall, I think he's probably slightly behind, but obviously he's actually got units, so, you know, it's not a bad position for him. And he's going into rams, and I can't do anything against the rams, because if I fight the rams, then I can't beat the units. So actually, although sometimes building loads of rams is actually something that as higher players you don't often see them do, in this case, it forces my hand either to lose all my buildings or to fight the units. So yeah, I'm going up to castle now as they're ramming the front of my base, which, you know, some people might say is not the best move, but at this stage I just thought maybe a Hail Mary to get a couple of cataphracts out or some Lance Connect or something could help. But I'm trying to just get as many of the longbow down as I can, and the men-at-arms, and I'm doing okay damage, but I just can't keep up with these numbers, and so I'm trying to target fire on the weaker ones to try and do as much damage as I can, but I've got 19 against 32 in front of me, so it's... You think he has some at home, there must be more because there's 46, so they must be rallied down here. If they were all up at the front, this would have been over a long time ago. So now I'm starting to lose the numbers. I don't have enough to one-shot any of them, and they do. So you can see they're just going down really quickly now. So there's that sort of turning point where when you lose the amount to one-shot units, it's really bad. And then I've aged up, and as a sign for most people, once you see somebody age up, you know they haven't been making units. Excuse me. Once you see them age up, you know they're not making units, and so you just push in. And at this point, the rams can just go and take down my sister network, which is really clever, and I tap out. And unfortunately, losing 2 of the 3 games, but a big learning experience, and I think lots to take onto the ladder to hopefully not get squashed so easily by the English. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully for another tournament.